No? Okay, next time I'll give you more. So it's been a while since I've been up here, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all very much for this. And I think this is kind of geared toward more toward what I would call mature Christians, and it's not really like for people that don't believe in the Lord, or that don't quite have enough information or what have you. But I have an interest, kind of a personal interest, in finding evidences of God that are outside the Bible and sharing them with others. Now, don't misunderstand me. I know that the Bible gives us all things that we need in order, pertaining to life and godliness. For instance, 2 Peter 1:3. Kind of quoted that a couple times today, but hey, why not one more time? His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and his own excellence. And also 2 Peter 3:16, all scripture is breathed out by God and is profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, for instruction, for training in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work. I know that the Bible teaches us about the Lord and about Jesus Christ and how he became our propitiation on the cross so that we could be forgiven of our sins, so that we can draw nigh to God and he can draw nigh to us. I know that the Bible teaches us. But I believe sometimes we need to go outside the Bible. We're talking with other people in the world around us. And sometimes people don't want to start with the Bible. They want to talk about something that's totally unrelated. And that's kind of what this is. This is one more tool for you to be able to add to your toolbox, to speak with other people in the world around you. And that's what this is intended for. Because I believe that there is strong evidence that God created the world, all that is in it, and the universe that stretches out for trillions and trillions of light years, farther than we could possibly see with our eyes or the scientific instruments that we have created. And I believe that God holds a plan and a purpose for us. In the past, I've shared with you this lesson from Dr. Buddy Payne. I've spoken about him several times. I'm sure Doug grew up with him in Florida. He's like, yep, I know who you're talking about. And one of my sisters, Julie, who lives in Texas, White House, Texas. You probably know where that is. One of the things we like to do is share CDs or tapes. Used to be tapes. I guess now it's MP3s, right? Cell phone links. When we go to a gospel meeting or a singing or something like that, or a lesson that we think was really great, we'll share that back and forth, and that's great. And she shared this gospel meeting that they had at their church, Rice Road Church of Christ, about 10 years ago. Buddy Payne preached that. And I've shared that with you guys, starting with the amazing properties of water. There's a lot of properties of water that seem alien compared to other molecules or substances that we have on the planet. And one of the things that I shared with you is this chart, the triple state of water. Water exists in solid, liquid, and gas. We all know this, right? Well, what's interesting is when you look at the chart of different states of other molecules, say like, for instance, solder, or say like, for instance, wood, or tin, or copper, or other substances, this is different and unique, while most other substances have very strong similarities. And so, for instance, you can see here that water, for instance, freezes at what temperature?
0.
What?
0 Celsius.
0 Celsius? Usually. And it boils at what temperature?
100 Celsius.
100 Celsius. Usually, okay? The thing is, Aaron, is that occurs at sea level. When have you ever boiled water at sea level? You're not in a boat. Your numbers are going to be slightly off with freezing or boiling point. And that's some of the things that this describes. The atmospheric pressure changes, as a for instance. Some of the other things we talked about was this is for pure water, 0 and 100 degrees Celsius, or 32 and 212, if you like Fahrenheit instead. This is for pure water. When do you ever see pure water? Unless you've got a really good filter and you boil it and condense it from steam back into a liquid, you're really going to find pure water. For instance, we also talked about salinity rejection. As water solidifies in the ocean, salt goes up, water goes down. We also talked about the fact that water, when it freezes from, let's say you've got a pond or an ocean or some other large body of water, freezes from the top down, doesn't it? Everything else on the planet freezes from the bottom up. Alien. Water is unique. It's got a lot of properties that are just unique about it. And if they didn't exist, for instance, the freezing from the top down, fish would die. We probably wouldn't have fish anymore for all the years that have gone by. And so that was one of the things that we've talked about, that Buddy Payne looks at me, says, that's an evidence of God. God had to create that because he knows that would be critical for life to exist. That and many other properties of water, critical for us. The composition of our bodies, the way we absorb, our bodies absorb and use water. We interact with water differently from everything else. It's absolutely critical. There had to be a plan in place for water to exist in the world around us. Also looked at design at the microscopic level. He talked about SETI. This is a department of NASA, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. You've probably seen photographs of a big array of gigantic satellite dishes that are looking up in the Earth. What are they looking for? They're looking for radio signals coming from Earth. Because if there's intelligent life out there, they too might have discovered radio and television and are probably talking out there. And if we could intercept one of those intelligent messages, we might be able to decode it. We might even say hello back. Knowing that light wave and energy radiation takes a certain amount of distance to travel across galaxies. By the time we receive one of these radio messages and decode it, I'm scared to get death that ET would just come and beat us up. Because they would be so much more advanced by the time they get here. We're listening to them when they're building pyramids. By the time they get here, they're going to be so much anyway. There's a reason that I have a script that's 10 pages long, so I don't get off track. I have how much time? Stay on track. SETI. And so, one of the things Buddy Payne talked about is the 20 amino acids. These 20 amino acids, we have this in our body, every one of them, to stay alive. Absolutely critical. If you don't have one of these, you're going to feel sick. Well, depending on whatever it is, I don't understand. I don't pretend to know what aspartame acid is, or glucosamine, or phyllo. I don't even try to. Proline, that one I can pronounce. Glutamine. When we were in Buddy Payne's class and he started putting slides like this up on the board, there's going to be a test about it tomorrow morning. But these pair up and these make protein chains. That's technology above my head. Tina and I have a little joke. We'll say, not only did it go over my head, it left skid marks. It makes protein chains, and these protein chains can pair up, but this one only pairs up with that one, this one only pairs up with that one, and this is a DNA strand. Our bodies have DNA strands. This is the information that makes up our body. You have to have this. And during replication, you've got this helicase. You've got this helicase up there that's unzipping it, and then you have the polymerase that zips it back together. This one here on the right, that one there on the left. So one DNA strand becomes two. You have to do this once every 3 months. You're an entirely different body than you were 3 months ago, if it works correctly. Okay? And so here's the thing. He said, you're looking for intelligent information. There it is. That's a language. And this is the technology that it produces. Now, like we would talk and say, blah, 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 and then, oh, I left my cell phone at the pew, probably a good thing. So we describe different things that need to come together, and boom, we have a cell phone. If we put it all together properly with the materials needed, right? One of his points was this, helicase. You have to have that for the DNA strand to split. Polymerase, you have to have that to put it back together. Now here's the thing, both of those are made out of protein strands. You have to have this one to have that one. You have to have that one to have this one. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? You have to have them both at the same time. And his point is, evolution could not produce that. That's not possible. What's the first cause? Because a first cause would have to cause both of them at the same time, and there's nothing to cause that. So we took a look at that. We also took a look at design at the macroscopic level. We are living on what has been described as a privileged planet. In his lesson, Buddy Payne described 8 critical factors that determine that Earth can exist. A critical factor. You have to have it. If you don't have this, you don't have an Earth. Here's the Milky Way sky. As you're looking at the night sky, this is what we see, right? If you are here, you're kind of looking sideways across this, my knuckle was the center, this bowed kind of disc. You're looking across it when you're looking across the Milky Way galaxy. This represents, what is it, trillions of light years? So if you got on a spaceship today and you wanted to go visit, I don't know, say Antares, one of the largest suns in our galaxy, it's going to take you a few thousand years traveling at the speed of light to get from here to here. Just to give you some scale, we are tiny. Does that humble you a little bit? So he says that in his lesson, he was sharing with us that scientists have categorized our sun as being a type 2 sun. We call our sun Sol. We are a type 2 sun. Only type 2 suns have the ability to sustain life. That's critical. If you're a type 1 sun or a type 3, I can't tell you what the differences are with these suns. But Antares is not one of them. Here's Antares. If you can imagine, that is our sun. In comparison to Antares, does traveling for 3,000 years in a spaceship just to get to Antares humble you a little bit? Look how tiny we are. We're a speck of dust. If you could take our sun and swap out Antares for a second, we'd be gone. We'd be fried. All the way, even Pluto doesn't have a chance to survive that. So the type of our sun is absolutely critical, the size of it, what it's made out of. There is something called a Goldilocks zone in a solar system. So a Goldilocks zone is how far are you from the sun for it to be able to sustain life. In our solar system, you only have Venus, Earth, and Mars that are sitting inside the Goldilocks zone. Venus is not a good place to live. It rains acidic acid all day long, sulfuric acid, all day long, all day, upward. Not very friendly for life. That's a critical factor. You can't have acidic rain any day, let alone all day, every day. And that's why we're looking at Mars as a possible second planet to colonize. What's another critical factor that we're looking at to colonize another planet? Water, just talked about that a few seconds ago. Guess what Mars doesn't have a whole lot of? Not a very hospitable place. We don't have very far to go. So he talked about 8 different critical factors. There's 250 of them. And he didn't have the time in his lesson. And he had 2 hours. So these are 3 lessons that I had the opportunity to share with you guys. I have previously mentioned to y'all or mused or what have you, that I believe that there are certain things that you can look at or study and know something about people. If you were to look at the back of my boots, there's this little finger hole that I can use to pull my boots up with. And I'm sorry, some days I just can't get my finger inside that hole to help me pull my boots up. But I find tie wraps are very useful. And so something, you might learn about me is I put tie wraps on my boots because it makes it very easy to put them on. So if you saw a boot sitting somewhere with a tie wrap hanging off of it, right? So that might be a little bit something that you might learn about me. This is called the stopwatch in the woods example. But if you found laying on the ground somewhere a cell phone and you picked it up off the ground, would you look at it and say, wow, this is amazing how we've got different kinds of plastics and metals and chemicals that somehow exploded together and created this technology that can connect to these invisible radio waves that I can call someone or play a game while away in the afternoon. How amazing it is that over 1 billion years, this just suddenly came together. No, of course we don't think that. We know that somebody created it, somebody made it. One of the things I've discovered about companies is they can't help but brand everything that they make. They put their name all over it. There it is on the front, there it is on the back. I bet if you looked inside, you'd see the brand name on the batteries even. Companies just can't help but brand everything that they make. One time I showed up to a store, and as I parked my vehicle, I saw a cell phone on the ground, and I picked it up. I think I've told you guys this before. And I'm like, wow, somebody lost their cell phone. It wasn't locked. And with a few swipes, I found their contact list with Mom. So I dialed, and I got Mom on the phone. And I said, hey, I'm Dave. I'm just some random guy that just found one of your kids' phone. If you know of a way to contact them, I'll give it back to them. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Oh, okay, great. Turn it off. Ring. Hello? Hey, this is Mom. Someone found your phone. And I was thinking, if this was a random sampling of the greatest intelligence on the planet, how did we not all starve to death? True story. Wow. I believe people in the world around us are wrongly taught that God doesn't exist. Evolution, the theory of evolution, I love it that they still call it the theory of evolution. They don't have it, they know they can't call it the fact of evolution. They still today call it the theory of evolution. They teach that in our colleges and universities still and expect people to believe in it, and that the Bible is a book of fairy tales, and that you can believe and do whatever you want to without coincidence. We live in what Canadian philosopher Charles Taylor calls the secular age, in which all beliefs are equally viable and real transcendence is less and less plausible. People are ignorant about the Bible because they don't believe it to be authoritative. Why should I read a book full of errors and contradictions? Sometimes we need to start with something outside the Bible that points to the Lord. And I believe that this might be that. And so, at last, it's my turn. I've stood on the shoulders of Buddy Payne for a while and taught his lessons. Now I'm going to stand on what I've learned and teach you guys something that I have discovered that I believe says there has to be a God. Coming from my electronics and electricity training and background. At the risk of sounding like I'm shooting off my fireworks all at once, we looked at Psalm number 19 already. Romans chapter 1:20 says, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." I believe there's things in this world, like we've already discussed, that point to a God who exists. Kind of like tie wraps on the end of my boots. Luke 19:35, and it brought a donkey to Jesus, and were throwing cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Sorry, a colt. And as they rode along, they spread cloaks on the road. And as he was drawing near on the way to the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of his disciples began to rejoice and praising God and his mighty works. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven, glory in the highest. And some of the Pharisees in the crowd said, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." And he said, "If these are silent, the very stones would cry out." 1 John 5. There are three that testify, the Spirit, the water, and the blood. And these three agree. If we receive testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater, which God has borne concerning his Son. 1 Corinthians 1:18. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to those who are, I can't read straight up like that, but to those of us who are being saved, it is the power of God. It is written, "I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart." In Psalm number 139:13, "You formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book it was written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there were none of them." I see I'm already starting to run out of time, so your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to finish reading 1 Corinthians. Dr. William A. Dempsey, from the 1800s, is a philosopher. He believes in God. And he developed something that he called specific complexity. And he wrote several books on it. Specific complexity is kind of a determination of, some things where it's like, there you go. He looks at things and says, this can or cannot be an evidence of God. Did it have to happen? Is it too complex to happen by random chance? For instance, rocks and plastic and sand and dirt exploding and creating a cell phone instantaneously. Too complex to happen by random. And so I'm going to start with a quick example of specified complexity. There's two arguments for creation, and the other one is called irreducible complexity. I'm not going to talk about that today. So I have here a deck of cards, as you can see. First thing I'm going to do is throw out the jokers. There are 52 cards in this deck. This is a standard deck. There are 4 aces. What is the chance that I can pull out one of the aces right here, right now in front of you?
1 in 52.
1 in 52. If you were to reduce that down, that's what, 1 in 13? You said 1 in 52. There's actually 4 aces.
That's what I said, 4 in 52.
4 in 52. My bad. 52 divided by 4 is 13. Let me get that slide up here. There it is. So the probability of pulling, going through this and say pulling up one of the aces, Tina's at home right now. Oh, that's why you wanted the deck of cards. There you go. There's one of the aces. 4 in 52. What's the probability of picking out the next thing?
3 in 53.
3 in 50. 3 in 53?
51.
50. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you guys made me the treasurer, and that's okay. That one? All right. What's the chance of picking out the next one? There's 2 aces left, right? 2 in 50?
1 in 26.
There you go. 1 in 25. Correct. There you go. There's the next one. What's the chance of picking out correctly the last ace?
49.
No, I know it's in there somewhere. There it is. All right.
Now, if you've got a marked deck, the odds are different.
Oh, but if I didn't have a marked deck, Steve,
Yeah.
and I wasn't looking at my little tabs, the chance of randomly drawing one of these aces is once in 270,000. Because if you take those numbers and multiply them together, you get math. What's the chance of doing it again? And again. Wait, where's my mark? What's the chance of doing it again and again? I'll tell you. And now I'm done with the cards. And I'm on the next page. Halfway through my lesson. Halfway through my time, right? To do that correctly once is 1 over 270,000. Scientific notation, you might move the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times and say 1 in 2.7 to the 5th power. It's the same thing. It's just scientific notation. To do it twice in a row would take you 1 in 5.3 times 10 to the 21st power. That's 5 with how many did I say? 21 zeros after it. How about to do it 3 times in a row? Oh, that's easy. That's 1 chance in 2.8 followed by 43 zeros. How about to do it again? 86 zeros. How about to do it again? And again, the number, you multiply it times itself, it's exponential. And you know what? I did this 10 times in a row at home. The chance of doing this 10 times in a row. Oh, and by the way, if you were to try to calculate this with a calculator on the third one, an 8-digit calculator, you've blown it away. It can't handle it. On this one here, doing it 9 times in a row, you've lost the average cell phone. The average cell phone can't calculate that. What about 13 times in a row? You've lost the average college student. How about 15 times in a row? Oh, you've lost the modern computer. How about 3,000 zeros after the end of that? What's the point? At some point, Steve suspected I was cheating. And he's correct. For for the ability to be able to do this, you're absolutely right. I cheated. I'm sorry. But it's to make the point that the more times you do this, the more exponentially impossible it becomes. And that is just a simplified version of specified complexity. What's the possibility of doing this 15 times in a row? It isn't. You may as well be betting on the lottery. Specified complexity. I am now halfway through my lesson. Electricity exhibits predictable mathematical patterns that are easily observed and repeatable. Scientists call that the scientific method. You could put together a little electrical circuit and measure it, like for instance, a voltmeter and a battery. By the way, that's a dead battery, or at least that's what a smoke detector says out of my house. Because it's less than 8.9. Anyway, observable, repeatable electrical properties that have been discovered, studied, recorded by some of history's greatest scientists and mathematicians. For instance, you probably heard of Thales of Miletus in 500, 600 BC, who discovered that you could have a barrel with chemicals in it, and if you stir it with a copper spoon, that's fine. If you stir it with an iron spoon, that's fine. If you stir it with a copper and iron spoon at the same time, you're going to get shocked. For thousands of years, people have learned and have known that you can get shocked by picking up an electrical eel. That one has not been attributed to any person. Remember I said earlier that people like to put their brand name on everything. Well, that's got to be Dave's principle, because only that idiot would pick up an electrical eel every single time and think he's not going to get shot. No, nobody's claimed that one. Benjamin Franklin, right, the 1800s, studied electricity and mostly static electricity, right? And we know people like Alessandro Volta, 1827, learned that you could store voltage in what he called a battery pile. Well, Thales of Miletus already figured that one out with a big old pot of chemicals. And many other, you've probably heard of Faraday Cage, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, James Watt, George Ohm, and many others. Here's a mathematical formula that we have derived from that. VIRPIV, power, intensity, which means amps. V for voltage, R for resistance. You can use these triangles, they teach this in high school. That you could take one of these, and if you know the power and the amps in the circuit, you can cover voltage. P divided by R is V. Ohm's law. Simple. And so here's some electrical formulas that you can get, and if you want a graphical representation, that makes it easy for you to remember. You can cover the P, for instance. Voltage times current equals power. If you want an example of that, yeah, sure. If you thought that was easy, this is the same thing, but it's more complex. Because, for instance, if you know how many volts you have in a circuit, and you know how much power you have in a circuit, but you don't know what the resistance is, that little simple triangle ain't gonna help you much. But this will, voltage to the second power divided by power is equal to resistance. As an example, here are our lights up above you. 125 volts, we know that they operate from 35 watts if you turn them all the way down, 50 watts if they're turned all the way up like they are right now. And if you do math, that's the effective resistance in that circuit. Just a basic example of some electricity. I'm not ready for that slide yet. Okay, so Ohm's law. So we can see that there is a pattern, electrical pattern here to electricity. And this is true of anything. If it was that 9-volt battery, for instance, and it was drawing 1/4 amp, you know that the resistance is 36 ohms. It's repeatable. It always works. That is specified complexity. Now, I've mentioned some people that have discovered and studied electricity over the years. And you know what? None of them invented it. It was discovered. So my question to you is, who invented electricity? I propose it was God, who with an intelligent design said, you know what? Let's give it a mathematical expression for man to discover and go, wow, that's amazing. And it doesn't just work a handful of times, like me playing with a deck of cards and Steve figuring out that I had them marked. It works every single time. Every single light bulb on this planet, every cell phone, it always works. The tiny little computer inside that came, oh wow, am I already out of time? I could have talked about the history of electronic components from the vacuum tube to when a transistor used to be the size of a Kleenex box until we learned how to miniaturize it. And now we have these tiny little electronic circuits and computers that might be like this tiny or even tinier. We have done a lot with electronics and electricity to get it to have it serve us in our cell phones, in our cars, and GPS and all that. And it always obeys this. It never fails. Well, Dave, I had a fuse blow the other day. That doesn't look like obedience. Oh, yeah. Let's take resistance and turn that into a 0. Voltage divided by 0. How much current you got?
0.
Wrong. That's what they teach in schools, and it's wrong. Any number divided by 0 is infinite. And have it backwards. Get your calculator out. 10 divided by 0. What's it going to tell you? Overflow. Why? It can't handle the number. 1,000,000 amps equals a blown fuse. Even dying electronics obeys this. Dogs and cats obey this. Dogs and cats use electricity every day. Greg's like, yeah, they sit on my couch and watch TV before I can get there. They're using up my electricity, my air conditioning. No. I'm talking about their nervous systems. They got a brain and all these nervous systems. And throughout the body, they have sensors that can sense the world around them, pressure and heat and cold, right? And it's not just dogs and cats that have this. Birds, well, that was a horrible fit. What happened to my bird? Livestock. Every animal on this planet obeys Ohm's law all day, every day. Even we do throughout our bodies. We categorize animals often by the complexity of their nervous systems. This animal's more complex than this one. And we like to say that we're on the top of the chart. And yet we still obey Ohm's law all day, every day. We like to look at our electronics devices and say, wow, my computer can do so many millions of calculations per second and transmit so much data using binary and hexadecimal. And we can transmit so many gigabits per second. How many Library of Congresses can your phone communicate in a second? And it's nothing compared to the trillions of pieces of data that our bodies transmit every day, all day long, per second. Incredible, infinitely more complex. And the ability for us to take the information and speak and transmit it to someone else in the same room, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, mind-blowing, mind-boggling, incredible. You know what that looks like to me? That looks like specified complexity. Just a simple mathematical formula, Ohm's law. And I haven't even talked to you, and don't even have the time to talk about capacitor reactance, binary, hexadecimal. I don't have time to talk about inductive reactance. I don't have time to talk about things like, I don't know, let's say data traveling over a cable. What do you call that? Pulse width modulation, networking that we use for various computer systems. Nothing in comparison to what God has created. Our bodies produce electricity. Our minds produce electricity using those amino acids. Did I watch Lawrence Fishburne at this service, tossing him in here? Our bodies are like a battery. And we produce electricity every single day. Incredible. According to the Bible, we are the only creature on the planet that's made in the image of God. Genesis 1:26 tells us, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the heavens, and the livestock, and over all the earth, and the creeping things that creep on the earth. So God made man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And blessed them and said, be fruitful, be multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the, you know the rest. Here's your homework, finish reading it. And God looked upon it and said, and behold, he said it was very good. God created it. Ecclesiastes 12, the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. I've had these kinds of philosophical arguments with my instructors in the various colleges that I've gone to. And I've asked this question. Where is the consciousness of man? Where's it located? In our brain? Is it in our head? Is this where we live? How does electricity represent our spirituality? Where is the electrochemical, biochemical component that says, I am alive? I hope I get something good for lunch. That sings songs, artwork, and runs around and has fun. How does electricity? We like to marvel at what we've created with our computers and say, well, we've got AI now, and we've got machines that think for themselves. No, they don't. They use a computer program that was created by a human being, and they react using pre-planned decisions made by a human being. AI, artificial intelligence, is not alive. Sorry, Alexa. Sorry, Siri. And they never will be. But if we are just a machine, where is the conscientiousness? Conscientious? Where is it? I believe it is not something that is a part of our body, but rather something that is given to man from God, our spirit. 1 John 5:7. There are three that testify, the spirit, the water, the blood. These three agree. And if we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. I think I read this earlier. And this is the testimony that God gave us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. Whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life. Our own bodies and our spirits will testify before God, either for us or against us. We know Matthew 25:46 depicts that there's a great day coming in which we will all be separated, saints and sinners, by the way that we have lived. the decisions we have made, because we're not just a machine with electrochemical, biochemical responses that drives this body like we drive a car. We are made in the image of God. And God gives us decisions to make. Draw nigh unto God, like we were talking about in 2 Peter 1 today, and he will draw nigh unto you. The Bible tells us that we must repent of our sins, calling on the name of the Lord. Baptism is necessary for repentance of sins, for remission of sins, and to live righteously before him. Whenever we get the chance, we need to share it with others, because others in the world around us, friends, families, people we don't even know, we're all related through Adam and Eve. We all deserve the same chance to draw nigh to God if we would just share it with others. Want some more homework? You can read those. Well, there you go. I believe evidence is an electricity of God. I believe electricity is an evidence of God. I believe it is God who created it. Mankind, we just figured that out. Like picking up a rock and saying, oh, wow, look, a rock. Hey, if I bang it against another one, there's stuff inside. God has a purpose for us. He wants us to be with him if we would just listen to his word, obey it, and share it with others. The lesson is yours. If you feel subject to the invitation, you can make that known as together we sing the invitation.